Here's a number that should stop you cold. The average American renter has been told for the last 4 years that the solution to their financial anxiety is simple. Just buy a house. Build equity. Stop throwing money away on rent. That's the advice. That's the cultural consensus. That's what your uncle says at Thanksgiving. And Ben is here to tell you that advice is running about a decade behind reality, because right now, buying the median American home requires an income of $116,000 a year. The median household income is $83,700. That's not a small gap. That's a $32,000 wall standing between the average American family and the thing every financial influencer keeps telling them is the foundation of wealth. And that wall didn't appear overnight. It was built brick by brick over 15 years of decisions, accidents, and economic shocks that compounded in the worst possible sequence. Let's run the numbers from the beginning, because that's the only way any of this makes sense. In 2012, the United States was still digging out of the 2008 financial crisis. Housing had collapsed, builders were terrified, and for the entire decade that followed, residential construction ran roughly 35% below its historical baseline. The country needed about 1.5 million new homes per year to keep up with population growth and household formation. It was building closer to 900,000 year after year after year. The starter home, the sub 1,400 square foot entry point that put the first generation of middle-class buyers on the property ladder, essentially stopped being built. Builders moved up market where margins were fatter, and quietly, almost invisibly, the United States fell somewhere between 3.5 and 4.5 million homes short of what it needed. Nobody declared a crisis. Nobody called a press conference. The gap just accumulated in the background like a slow leak nobody fixed. Then 2020 happened. The Federal Reserve dropped interest rates to near zero and started injecting $120 billion a month into the financial system. By January 2021, the 30-year fixed mortgage hit 2.65%, the lowest rate recorded since 1971. Suddenly, millions of people who had been sitting on the fence realized they could afford dramatically more house for the same monthly payment, and a once-in-a-generation pandemic had just given them a completely new relationship with the word home. Remote work exploded. People left expensive cities. They descended on Austin, Phoenix, Boise, Nashville, Tampa, markets with already thin inventory, carrying pre-approvals, pandemic savings, and the specific anxiety of someone who had spent 14 months staring at walls they needed to escape. National home prices jumped 37% in 2 years, not over a business cycle, 2 years. Austin climbed 61%, Phoenix 59%. The median home went from $272,000 in 2019 to pushing $420,000 today. And if you got in during that window, good for you, genuinely. That was one of the best financial accidents a person could have stumbled into. But here's where it gets painful for everyone else. Before Ben keeps going, drop this in the comments. Are you currently renting, trying to buy, or have you already given up on buying entirely? Ben genuinely wants to know, because the answer changes which part of this conversation actually matters to you. By mid-2022, inflation was running at 9.1%, the highest in 40 years. The Federal Reserve did what central banks do when inflation spikes. They raised rates, 11 hikes in 16 months. The federal funds rate went from 0.25% to 5.5%, and mortgage rates followed like a shadow. January 2022, 3.22%. October 2022, 7.08%. October 2023, 7.79%. That last number, 7.79%, was the highest mortgage rate since the year 2000. On houses that had already increased in value by 40%. Run the math on what that actually means. A $400,000 home, 20% down, $320,000 mortgage. At 2.65%, your monthly payment is $1,293. At 7.79%, that same loan is $2,295. That's $1,002 more per month every month for 30 years. For the exact same house, same carpet, same commute, same neighbor who never waves back. The total difference over the life of the loan is over $360,000. And here's the thing that took a frozen market and made it truly immovable. About 51% of all outstanding American mortgages carry a rate below 4%. Roughly 1 in 5 are below 3%. These homeowners are sitting on a financial instrument that no longer exists. The bank won't offer it again. The market can't recreate it. If they sell and buy something else, they don't just move. They voluntarily surrender the cheapest money most of them will ever access in their lifetime and replace it with money that costs more than twice as much. Federal Reserve researchers calculated the average financial penalty for making that swap at over $65,000. That's the pure cost of leaving, before moving trucks, before closing costs, before anything. So what do rational people do when leaving costs $65,000? They stay in the house that's too small, in the neighborhood they've outgrown, in the Zoom background they're tired of looking at, not because they want to stay, because a spreadsheet is physically holding them there. The Atlanta Fed estimates this lock-in effect reduces the probability of any homeowner listing their home by 21 to 23%. Researchers at the FHFA estimate it has suppressed roughly 1.7 million transactions that would otherwise have happened. Active inventory is still 17% below 2019 levels. Months of supply sits between 3 and 4. You need 6 for a balanced market. The result is a market that has stopped moving, not collapsed. Frozen, prices near all-time highs, transaction volume at 30-year lows, simultaneously, which should be mathematically contradictory, and yet here we are. The person getting squeezed hardest in all of this isn't some abstract category. It's a 31-year-old with a good job, no debt, a 750 credit score, 3 years of disciplined saving, and a Zillow habit that's become genuinely unhealthy. Someone who did everything right, who skipped vacations and kept the roommate longer than she wanted, and watched her down payment fund grow while the home she was saving for grew faster. The median age of a first-time buyer in America is now 40. In the early 1990s, it was 28. That's not a data point. That's a generation's worth of delayed equity, delayed stability, and delayed entry into the primary wealth-building vehicle that prior generations used to fund their retirements. Buying at 40 instead of 30 costs roughly $150,000 in lifetime equity from the decade of appreciation you missed. And 22% of millennials have stopped waiting entirely, not paused, given up. So what actually changes this? The honest answer is time. Slowly, the lock-in effect fades. People retire, get divorced, take new jobs, have kids. The share of mortgages below 4% has already dropped from a peak of 65% to around 48%. That slow release is the most realistic mechanism for loosening supply. Rates will probably drift down. Most forecasts put the 30-year fix somewhere between 5.7% and 6.1% by year end. Better, but a bank rate survey found that 37% of homeowners need rates below 5% before they'd even consider selling. We're not there yet. And here's the counterintuitive risk nobody talks about enough. If rates drop fast, demand returns overnight. Supply doesn't recover overnight. The same mismatch that caused the 2020 to 2022 surge could partially repeat at a higher price base. The cure, arriving too quickly, could temporarily make the disease worse. The most honest forecast is the least satisfying one, a slow sideways grind where prices plateau, incomes gradually close the gap, and the market thaws over 5 to 7 years through attrition rather than any dramatic policy fix. What does that mean for you right now? It means running your actual numbers, not your realtor's numbers, not your parents' advice, yours. If total housing costs land below 28 to 30% of gross income and you're staying at least 7 years, the math can work. If it doesn't hit that threshold, it doesn't work, regardless of what the market is doing. Renting and investing the difference is a legitimate strategy. Nobody earns a commission when you do it, which is exactly why you don't hear it suggested very often. The housing market isn't broken in the 2008 sense. There's no fraud. The equity is real. Foreclosures are minimal. It's broken in a quieter, more frustrating way. It just stopped being accessible to the people it was always supposed to serve. Your frustration is mathematically justified. The gap is real, and now you know exactly where it came from. If this video helped you actually understand why the numbers feel so wrong, hit subscribe. Ben puts out new videos every week breaking down the financial systems that affect your real life with the actual math, no sugarcoating. And if you know someone who's currently trying to figure out whether to rent or buy, send them this video. It might save them a very expensive mistake.